Hello you guys, welcome back to another video. Today is going to be a very much anticipated video, and that's going to be how you guys, my audience, voted on the Versailles Treaty, the treaty that dealt with Germany at the end of World War One. Like almost a month ago now, we did this. We had our survey, we published a video about it, announcing it, and we had everyone who was able to go into the Google form and vote on how they wanted to handle territorial issues for Germany. And this was very cool. As you can see, we got 447 responses, which is crazy. Just who voted for what, just based on the numbers, which is very cool. And today I'm going to visualize that for you and share that data on a map. So I've made this map here. I've made it on a map chart. I just got a Hoi 4 province map, and I just took a while to fill it in, and then I edited some things to make certain things look better, like New Cameroon right here. I added Yupin Malmedy. But this is, other than that, this is the base game Hoi 4 province map. So don't be too mad if it looks like slightly inaccurate. This isn't RWS, we don't need to fight about that. This is just for fun. But I'm going to show you guys what you guys voted on, and then I'm going to show you on the map how it changes. This is a map of 1914, I believe, except of course there's a couple outliers. I put Poland on the map and Lithuania on the map just because they are relevant for the treaty, so that just made sense to me. But you can see we have everything here. Even our islands in the Pacific, you can see Germany's colonies. There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, and then there's a bunch over here, and then one over here. So that's very cool. And we're just going to go through all this. And what better to start with than the biggest war aim of them all for the French, which is Alsace-Lorraine. Now I gave you guys a couple of options for Alsace-Lorraine. I gave you an option of doing a joint administration, splitting on ethnic lines, perhaps even an independent Alsace state. But you guys voted overwhelmingly, interestingly, by 206 votes. The second highest only had 113 to grant the historical territory of Alsace-Lorraine to France. So you guys picked the historical option. It makes sense realistically, though I doubt this whole thing will be very realistic. It does make sense that this happens because there's no way they're going to not want this. This is so important to the French. So let's add that to the map. Alright, so Germany has lost Alsace-Lorraine. Very fair, in my opinion. They've been fighting over this for decades, so it makes sense. Let's see, what is next? Next is going to be the Saar Basin. That is this little basin right here, and it was historically occupied by France, if you didn't know, all the way up to, I believe, 1935. Or it might have been 33, I'm actually not quite sure, but a long time. And they had hopes to annex this region. I'll just highlight it for you right here. It's these. Oops. It's these right here. Maybe not quite that tall, but you get it. They wanted to annex that mostly just for the resources that were there. A lot of coal and a lot of iron. But it didn't end up happening. They eventually held a plebiscite and they voted to come back to Germany. So that's what happened. Let's see what you guys picked. You guys picked let them stay with Germany with 36%. The second highest option of 21% was push for immediate French annexation, which is interesting. So the closest option other than the first option was actually a more hardline option, which is very interesting. But no, you guys voted to keep that with Germany, so we already have a bigger Germany. I am very curious how Germany will end up, because there is, a pretty high chance that Germany actually comes out of this pretty good, just based on how Hoi 4 watchers are and how YouTube is and stuff like that. Just people in general that like World War One want to see that. So I'm very interested. We'll see how it goes. Next up is going to be the Rhine River. This isn't really a territorial change, although it could have been, but you guys voted overwhelmingly for it to just be demilitarized. This is a lighter demilitarization, so that is interesting. Again, nicer to Germany. But no, there was an option for an independent Rhineland state, which got a lot of support. It was the second highest option, and then there's even a full French annexation, which would be crazy. Alright, now next up we got the question of the expansion of Belgium into Germany. Should Belgium expand into Germany? Historically, they did, actually, if you didn't know. They took this small state right here, the state of Yupin Malmedy. That was taken by Belgium. And so really, I don't know why I have it already under Belgium's control. I guess that's a mistake. Oh well, don't yell at me. But let's see, did you guys vote for that here? There's a couple different options. There was even options to really expand Belgium quite a bit to make them stronger. And this one was very close compared to other ones. We had 33% versus 28%. 28% was the historical choice, and 33% was to give them jack shit, which you guys have decided to do. So it looks like Germany actually gets to take, well, in reality, keep Eupen Malmedy. All right, next up is Luxembourg. Luxembourg is a small blue country right here. In the war, they were occupied by Germany as part of their push into France, and they set up a collaborator state there. And I left you guys a couple of options. I left the option to punish them. That's just kind of an economic thing. I had the option to actually give them back to Belgium, which is very interesting, and I had options to split Luxembourg as well, or just give them straight up to France to make France stronger, which really got way less traction than I thought. The second highest option was to give them to Belgium, but in the end, they were able to keep their independence. So people from Luxembourg, all 5 of you, you get to keep your country. Very cool. Now Schleswig, for some reason, I gave a bunch of options to, and this is the most I think out of the whole thing, or maybe close to it. But all of these options, all of the splitting of the vote, really did not change the result. We still have a pretty big majority for Schleswig to remain with Germany. In reality, Denmark, I believe, got all the way up to here, and so that was obviously kind of weird because Denmark was not actually in the war, and they didn't even really want it, but they were forced to have it by the Allies, which is a very interesting example. But in this case, it does not happen, so we have looking like a pretty big Germany so far. We'll see. All right, and while we're in the kind of North Germany region, I put a question of Hanover. And this is just an independence decision. Do you want the state of Hanover to be independent? This is if you really want to punish Germany, if you really want to make them suffer. But you guys did not want to make Germany suffer. Poor Germany. They get to be okay. Leave Hanover be. Got 335 votes, and to give Hanover independence, only got 106 votes. So there's a 200 vote difference at least. Very crazy. Next up, this one is quite important. The question of Poznan and West Prussia. That's this area right here. And there's a lot of ethnic Germans, at least on like these like border regions of Poznan and in some cities. And a lot of it also is very Polish. And then when it comes to the Polish corridor, again, I think that's a more famous example. You guys know how that is. In reality, they get all the way up to this, and they also get Danzig, kind of, which splits Germany in two. And I left a couple of different options here. Here are the options that I put. I had options to keep Danzig separate, but give the whole thing to Poland, which is the historical choice. I had one where you grant Poznan to Poland and the Polish corridor and annex Danzig into Poland straight up. I had a ethnic line split one, and then I had one where Poland should get like naval access, which is interesting. And then I had one where you just straight up leave this alone, which is quite crazy in my opinion, but it actually did get some support here. I got 64 votes from you guys. But the biggest option is going to be this one. Split Poznan on ethnic lines mostly and give a smaller corridor to Poland while giving Danzig to Germany. So Germany gets to keep Danzig. Poland still gets its corridor vote, though it is smaller. And Poznan is going to be split on ethnic lines. So you're going to see probably Germany retain some provinces here and lose some in the east. Let's make it happen. Alrighty, so I'm back, and here is what we have decided on. As you can see, I just looked up. I'm not an expert, and this isn't to be taken very seriously, so don't get offended. I just kind of looked at ethnic maps online from the 1910 census, and then kind of based that while also using the limitations of the Holy Four provinces, which aren't perfect. And this is what I've come up with. I have given Poland the vast majority of Poznan, while Germany retains mostly this northern bit, which seemed to have the most Germans, but also this western bit right here. And then for the Polish corridor, I did give it, of course, that smaller corridor. I gave a couple more, this province right here to Germany. They got to retain that, and of course they got to keep Danzig, which is big. So here you are. Germany is officially split into two, but East Prussia is quite big still, so that is nice. Maybe there'll be less revanchism there. I'm not sure. Let's keep it up. Next up is Memel. Memel is this small strip of territory right on the north end of East Prussia, and you guys voted to actually give it straight up to Lithuania here. That's why I have them on the map, just in case that happened. So let's do that. There we go. So Lithuania grows, and Germany loses some of their Prussia, even though they just kept some of their Prussia that they otherwise wouldn't have. So I guess it's a trade there, although I believe a very good trade, if I had to say so myself. But that looks nice. There were a couple different options here. There was even an option to just let Germany still keep the port, which actually got quite popular. This was very close, only 3 percentage points between it remaining German and being transferred to Lithuania. Now next up is Holtschen. It's a small area right here. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It went to Czechoslovakia, and I only gave 3 options here. There wasn't really much you could do with such a small territory. I just gave the historical option, Czechoslovakia, also gave an option for Poland, and then an option to remain with Germany. Poland got cucked. Germany got quite close, actually, but Czechoslovakia still earns it. This is going to be such a minor change that I'm going to probably have to split up provinces here, which is annoying, but let's give it a shot. There you go, it's in the map. I don't know if you can quite tell if that is in the map, but it is in the map. It's this like small area right here. It is now, for now, Austrian, but we'll see what happens when we do our next video, which is going to be based on Austria and their treaty. So I guess we'll see, but for now it's actually given to Austria, which is quite weird. It's just how it is. I didn't want to make them all into one video. So next up is going to be Upper Silesia. Now Upper Silesia is quite a big area compared to the last one. It's pretty much this right here, which of course, as you can see, is quite German, but it had a lot of a weird like Polish and German mix, and a lot of Polish as well mixed in there. And I had a bunch of different options here for this as well. You can see this is a colorful map compared to some of the other ones. And you have a split between Germany and Poland, which is what happened historically. I had an option to actually give everything to Poland, which would be quite brutal. I actually got second place, which is surprising in my opinion. You have the entire region to stay with Germany, which is the Kaiserbu way of doing it. And then you have it divided along more favorable industrial lines for Germany, which I thought would be interesting, and then you have split entirely on ethnic lines, which is what you guys voted for. 160 votes versus the second place, which had 99. So again, actually quite close, surprisingly. But yeah, we're going to split this on rough ethnic lines, again, based on the whole 4 provinces, so bear with me. Alrighty, so here we are after splitting on ethnic lines. This is what we come up with. As you can see, Poland got quite a bit of it, but whoa. But Germany is able to retain some parts. Very interesting border. It's pretty unique, so I'm happy for that. You know, as someone who's making a map here, I'd like it for it to be unique, so that's quite nice. But you can still see it feels like Germany's still looking pretty good here. I think the addition of Poznan really helps most. But let's just keep going. Let's see what happens. Some more stuff could happen. Now next up, I had a couple of different state independence options. Again, this is just to fall in line with Hanover, and you can see they're not happening. They're all staying with Germany, which makes sense. Interestingly though, Bavaria got the most votes for independence, which is just kind of nice because it makes sense that they would be the most popular for independence, since that was true at the time as well. We have 135 votes versus only 87 for Mecklenburg. Very neat, but again, just simple questions. To punish Germany hard. You guys did not end up doing that. Now that is it for continental Europe as far as German losses. So let's just summarize it real quick. They lost Alsace-Lorraine, but they were able to keep Ypres and Malmedy. They were able to keep all of this area from the Danes. The Danes were not able to take Schleswig. They were able to keep some territory in Silesia, and they were able to keep some territory in Poznan, as well as retain Danzig, and some more territory here from Poland. So Poland did not get as big here. They're quite small right now as well. They don't have all of this beautiful land that they yoinked up afterwards. But they did lose, interestingly, Memel. It's actually quite interesting that Memel and Alsace were the places to be lost out of everything. But that is it for continental Europe, but we are far from done. We have to focus on the German colonial empire. Another big reason that World War II started was because of the loss of these colonies. We're going to see what happens here. We'll see how strict you are. I could be a little bit more loose with this because this is Africa. It just, sorry to say, it doesn't really matter as much as Europe. So you can have a little bit more fun with it, I feel. So let's start with the colonies. Now first, we're going to start in Asia, and the first question is going to be the question of Shandong. Now Shandong is this small colony in China, actually. It's a Chinese concession, which some people don't even know about. And in real life, it was given to Japan. Japan hopped in on the war really because of Germany's beautiful islands here, and also Shandong. They wanted that for themselves. You guys voted for the same thing. Give it to Japan. The second highest option was actually to give it to China, which would be interesting. But nope, Japan still gets to keep this as a base of operations. Very neat. Next up, we have Nauru and the Solomon Islands. Now, Nauru is this little island right here, just east of New Guinea. And then the Solomon Islands are going to be these islands right here, which were, at the time, I believe, split between the British and Germans. Let's see if I have already represented that. Yeah, I kind of have. Not sure if this is exactly right. Actually, this was quite close. Or, no, actually, no, it was quite split, actually, between Japan, interestingly, and actually let the Germans keep this colony. But in the end, it looks like Australia gets to get them. So this and this, they're Australia now. Now next up is going to be German New Guinea. This is a much bigger colony, and you can see it here. It is on the north side of Papua New Guinea, and it also includes these islands right here. As you can see here, again, history prevailed. It's given to Australia. So there you go. Australia's looking quite chunky right now. Let's keep it up. Now, German Samoa is actually in the Pacific, but it's not going to be on this side of the map because Hoi 4 is not an infinite map. It actually is just an image. So we got to scroll all the way over here, and there we go. There it is. And German Samoa is actually split between the Americans and Germany. You can see Germany has the western part, and America has American Samoa, which you've probably heard of, on the east. And again, there's a couple different options here. Unification with American Samoa as a neutral island state. So it seems that American Samoa is actually going to contain all of Samoa, which is good for the Americans. And I'm American, so I like that. But it's quite interesting how close this was. 133 votes to 143, so only a 10-vote difference. And there you go. This is America now. Well, technically, a territory. You know what I'm talking about. Next is just Micronesia in general. This is just all of these islands right here. The vast majority of them. And it looks like Japan gets them just like in real life. There's also the option for the US to gobble them up, which would have been great, in my opinion. And then there's also the option, of course, to let Germany keep these, which would have been interesting. I wonder how that would have affected revanchism, but no, these go to Japan. There we go. Now Japan has taken these islands here, and that actually wraps up the Pacific, looking very good for Japan and also very good for Australia, and mostly historical, which is very neat. Now let's move on to the last colonies, which are the African colonies that Germany owned. Now first up is going to be German East Africa. This was quite a big colony actually, and I left a lot of options for you. I had options to split it. I had options to have the entire colony go to Britain, which I believe is historical. Oh, actually no, it's not. I also have historical, but Belgium gets more land. I have a division between Britain and Portugal, which would have been very interesting. I have the interesting choice of allowing the Germans to just keep it, and I also have the choice of allowing the Germans to keep it with an island, which surprisingly won. So Germany gets to keep an island off the coast of Southeast Africa, which means that this is the first colony that Germany actually gets to keep. It may be the only one. We'll see. Again, this is super close between that and actually splitting it historically. So there you go. Again, this is a very important war aim for Britain because it makes the Cairo to Cape colony work. Now you can see it extends from north all the way to the south. German East Africa was in the way. But Germany, again, like I said, does get to keep the islands off the coast, which of course are important in their own right. But they're not really noticeable on a map. But we can say Germany kept a colony. They're still a colonial power. Maybe this will help. I don't know, actually. It'd be very interesting. Now, German Southwest Africa, interestingly, was also done non-historically, but not done in favor of Germany. Instead, you guys have decided to split it between Portugal and South Africa. So South Africa will get the southern bit, and then Portugal will actually acquire this northern bit, which will, of course, extend Portugal's influence in Africa. They still don't get that beautiful middle part that they want so badly, but this is actually very neat. I'm glad you guys picked this option. There you go. There goes German Southwest Africa. Sorry, Germany, you don't get to keep this one. and you can see it's split between the Dominion of South Africa, and Portugal looks quite big there. That's pretty neat. Now we're going to move on to, I believe, the second biggest colony in Africa by Germany, which is going to be Cameroon. Now for Cameroon, the historical choice is actually a weird kind of split between France and Britain. They kind of gobble it up. France gets back what it lost beforehand in the Morocco crisis, if you guys know anything about that. And Britain gets their piece of the pie as well. But really surprisingly, and I want to ask you guys, why for Cameroon did you guys pick this out of all of them? Why Cameroon? You guys voted to let Germany keep this with economic sanctions, which is what the question says, or what the answer says. But of course, that doesn't really mean anything on the map. So Germany actually gets to keep Cameroon, which is very fascinating. Again, I'm not sure if this will affect things, but having Germany keep a whole colony in Africa is definitely more consequential than a lot of other things. Now last up is going to be German Togoland. Now for Togoland, I had the option of historically splitting it between France and Britain. I had an option for both of them to either unify it under their flag, so either a united Togoland under Britain or a united Togoland under France. And then I had an option to make it like a condominium, which is very interesting. But you guys decided to do it historically to wrap this thing up, so let's make it happen. Alright then, there goes Togoland, split between Ghana and France here. And that actually wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is definitely fun to make. I'm sorry it took so long, but a lot of stuff was going on. And we're going to hopefully very soon get to the other treaties. We're going to beat up Austria maybe, or actually maybe help them out. We're going to deal with Bulgaria after that, and then the Ottomans after that, which is going to be very interesting as well. I'm excited for that. But overall, it's interesting to see what happened to Germany here. Some things went historically, some things did not. They were treated quite well in Europe, I would say. They're able to keep a lot of territory that they lost. Not so much in Poland. They lost still a lot there. But over here is great, and keeping Yupan Malmedy is great. Quite surprising. And some close margins there, which is very interesting. But more interesting, I think, is the German colonial empire surviving. Not in Asia. In Asia, it was completely wiped out, which I think makes sense. I was expecting that. But they get to keep these islands off of German East Africa here, and then they were able to keep all of New Cameroon, which they had just acquired in, I believe 1914 is when it got really big like that. So very surprising. So here we go. We have Germany and its empire, its surviving empire, very hurt, but actually still, maybe can make them some profit here. I mean, it wasn't really much in Cameroon. But still, very, very interesting. I'm going to be excited what you guys do for Austria-Hungary, which, by the way, is still open for voting. I have a video on my page where I have a link for that. If you want, click on there. I'll maybe pop it up on screen right now as well. And you can still vote on that, but not for very long. It's going to get locked quite soon. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing what y'all did to the World War I peace treaty with Germany, the Treaty of Versailles. And really, just seeing you guys make this your own is very cool. I love this community. I love you guys. I hope you have a good day. That's about it. See ya.